Hey everybody, welcome to 30-minute pull request. This is a stream video where I try and tackle a GitHub issue or and raise a pull request to solve it in under 30 minutes. So yeah, today I'm going to try working with Sphinx. I need a better microphone. Yeah, so I'm just using what's in my headphones at the moment. I definitely need a better microphone, but like this stream is just like an experiment. Um, so I tend to like dive headfirst into things, and it's really, really tempting for me to like spend a load of money on microphones and better webcams and lighting and all that kind of stuff before I know that I'm actually gonna like commit to this. Um, Given that there's basically no chat kind of going on, I'm not gonna give out any more privileges at the moment. But thanks for the offer, I do appreciate it. Um, so yeah, I uh, I apologize about the audio. Basically, is what I'm gonna say for now. I've kind of said to myself that if I can get to like 50 followers, then maybe I'll invest in upgrading something, whether it's the webcam or the microphone or both, or getting some lights and stuff. So if you want me to sound better, please tell other people to come and watch and follow the stream. Um, so yeah, today what I'm going to do is I'm doing some work on Dask, as always, and I am specifically fair enough. Um, I'm specifically working on the SSH cluster implementation. So uh, this the issue that I'm going to tackle today isn't it's not actually quite an issue, but I wrote a blog post about different ways of deploying Dask and different ways cluster managers, all the different kinds of cluster managers that exist in the Dask ecosystem. So the blog post isn't linked, isn't published yet, so there is no link. But what I will show you is I'll show you the open pull request to that, and then some of the feedback that I've had on there. I'm like hesitant. The way I've got things configured in my streaming is that when I switch to my browser and encode to my timer starts. So I'm gonna keep going my intro for a minute. I also haven't hit record here. So yeah, what I'm going to try and do is I've wrote this blog post about how Dask, different ways of deploying Dask, and in that blog post, one of the methods that I talk about is SSH cluster, which is it's like a little utility in Python which SSHs into other machines, bootstraps the Dask cluster on there, and then gives you back the cluster connection object. So you can then use that. It's a great way if you've just got SSH access into a bunch of machines, you can like grab those and use them all together as one like little mini cluster. Um, and one of the bits of feedback is just about the way that the documentation works. So I started just writing a quick little pull request into the documentation to add a bit more context and realized that actually what I might want to do is link from the DAS documentation through to the async SSH documentation, which is async SSH is a library we use underneath in Python for doing the SSH connection. And we're referencing a class in there. So basically, I want to link from one documentation to the other. There's a really nice tool in Sphinx documentation which allows you to reference other classes by name, and it will like link through to the correct web page in the other documentation. It's called intersphinx. So what I'm going to look at doing is adding intersphinx to point to async SSH and then get the right references in place. So with that, what I'm going to do is let's switch over and I'll start my timer and we'll go as quick as we can and let's get there. So starting from here, I've got my project board and I've got a card in for this one. So let's start here. Right, this is my pull request. That's not where I wanted to start, is it? No. Let me come back out. That's my pull request that I want to like add on to, right? So I'm not actually going to raise a new pull request. I've like done a very minimal one. But let's just start the Dask blog. Dask blog. Pull request. Right, the current state of distributed Dask clusters. Right, this is the blog post I wrote. I actually wrote this in February, but I've kind of sat on it for a while. But I've kind of polished it up and put it in. So you can kind of come and check out the draft of it here. If you want to have a look. But this should get merged and published on the Dask blog soon, I'm hoping. So the comment I'm particularly talking about here is that somebody asked, how can you provide different arguments to the SSH cluster? So username, password, port numbers, all the kind of stuff that you would want to pass SSH. You can it's not obvious from the way I've written the blog post and from the documentation how you pass those things. So I've kind of just commented back saying these are the way that you pass those things, and I ended up actually making a small pull request against the Dask code just to say, um, you know, this is the thing. This connection options argument can take a dictionary, and this needs to be things like port, username, password, known hosts, all the things that async ssh.connect and async ssh client connection options will take. And so like I started doing that, and I was thinking, well, in the docs it'd be nice to click this and it take you to the async ssh documentation so we can see what that is. And that's where intersphinx comes in. So what I want to do is, I've added this bit here, but I want to make sure that these actually work correctly with intersphinx. So the way I need to do that is to first build the documentation. Now let me just, I think I've got, where's this page? Right, the docs. This is the link to the page that's not giving the information that we want. Now the only thing about the way that the Dask docs work actually is Dask has a bunch of sub-projects in the Dask org on GitHub, but the bulk of the documentation lives in the main Dask repository. So I got started. I checked out the Dask distributed repo and made sure that I was ready to go. But I think actually this docs page that I want, although there is docs in here, I don't think this is where things are being referenced. It isn't where I want to put intersphinx. So let me just quickly go to Dask. I think this is actually happening in Dask. Let's have a look. Docs. The page is, yes, this is docs.dask.org. This is the main. This isn't distributed.dask.org, which is where I'd mainly expect to find this, because this is referencing this cluster here. But this is in setup ssh.html. So let's have a look. Source setup ssh.rst. That's what we want. Let's just look at the raw here. Yeah, so this is the main Dask docs. There's some information about how Dask SSH works. And there is like an auto function here, which is what is displaying that. So I'm going to need to make a pull request. I think I'm going to need to make two pull requests for this actually. I've got the one that I've made into distributed, which is going to change the actual doc string to have more information in. But then also, I think we want to change the Dask. I want to put another pull request into Dask, which is going to update the intersphinx config. So let's first start here. Right, we won't worry about that. So I want in deploy SSH. This is where I made my first change, right? The change I made before I started streaming, which is I added these few lines here. But really, I want to reference these, and I can never remember the Sphinx syntax, so I'm gonna have to Google it. Sphinx. Let's start with the intersphinx documentation. So we can just see. There you go. Link to other projects documentation. So in order to use intersphinx, both projects need to have intersphinx configured. So async ssh is the library that we want to link to, and I did check this beforehand, but if we come into async ssh in their docs, they are also using Sphinx. There is a conf.py file, which is how you configure Sphinx. And looking at the extensions in the list here, there is sphinx.extensions.intersphinx. So they've already set up intersphinx. That means that they are publishing their object index to their documentation. And I think let's just try and remember where that lives. Objects.isv, something like that. Yeah, inv. Each Sphinx HTML build creates a file named objects.inv that contains a mapping from object names to URL relative to HTML root set. So that should mean that from the async SSH docs, there should be an objects.inv file. And if I go to that, yes, okay, it's trying to download it because it doesn't, my browser doesn't know how to handle that extension. If I just come down to my terminal and just kill that. Oh, it's a binary format and everything. Okay, but that's fine. The object exists. Sphinx knows how to handle that. That's fine. So I don't need to worry about that. I just need to worry about what that link is here. The intersphinx documentation says you have to set these mappings up to say this project, this module, like this Python module, this importable Python module, has documentation that lives here. So we need to set that up on the Dask side, and then we need to put the reference in. Just have a quick. Yeah, this is all just, that's it, isn't it? I didn't know if this would have an example that I could copy and paste as well. Oh yeah, ref. Then link to the label comparisons in the doc set of Python. Comparison manual. Yeah, Python comparisons. Okay. So let's just say Sphinx link to class. Kind of what I want, which is with the auto module, right? Oh, this one. Yeah, okay. So in my documentation, I want to have, this would be like function, I guess. Cross-referencing Python objects with autodoc. That's what we want. Yeah. So we can omit this colon pi because Python is the default language. So you do something like this. We would say here async ssh.connect. You would go like that. Like func. Like that. So we're linking that to the function async ssh connect, which should link to API documentation connect. Okay, here I'm hoping intersphinx should generate this link so that connects through. And we also have client connection options, which is this one. And that's a class. So yeah, that's a class. That is a function. Yep. So we also want back in my code where I reference that this needs to be class. That was just one backtick there. Okay. So I've updated that. But what I actually want to do is build the Dask documentation, not the documentation that's here. I am just to save opening another project. I wonder if I can just no. Okay, I'm gonna save that. I am gonna do is I'm gonna open Dask. Let me just I've got it. Sorry, I've got to open another window. Let me just clean it up and get it out of the way. Let's get rid of that. Actually, where to go? Open Dask. There we go. Okay, Dask. Git push. Oh, I haven't pushed. So, okay, let's put it. And let's just do git pull upstream master. Just make sure I'm up to date. Yeah, which I am. That's fine. So docs, source, setup, ssh.irst. Okay, so we are auto functioning SSH cluster here, which is where that is getting built. What I need to do is build these docs just to see how things look. So if I just activate Dask, just make sure I'm in the right environment. So I've got my development builds of Dask and distributed installed in this environment. So I'm hoping this should just work. I cd into docs and then say make HTML. It's a pretty standard way of building HTML in Sphinx. intersphinx like has a little setup script which creates some make files for you for both Windows and Unix systems. This is quite a big set of documentation, so I don't know how well this is going to go. What I tend to do, like make HTML and Sphinx, like compiles a static website into this build folder. So there's this build HTML. This is where the website is going to be ending up. What I'm also going to do is I'm just going to open another terminal to the side. Yeah, and go into the build HTML folder, and I'm going to go python -m http server. So just start a little web server in here on port 8000. Right, Sphinx has failed for some reason. Exception occurred. So series is not an item name. Right, let's just make sure I've got things like requirements docs installed. Because I might just be missing some packages. Yeah, that's fine, because I can't type. Install -r requirements docs.txt. Right, and let's make HTML again. This might just be that one of my docs dependencies was out of date. But look, oh, I saw some intersphinx stuff going on at the top there. I don't know if is it gone off the top already? No. Where is it? Here, right, loading intersphinx inventory from pandas and scipy and numpy. Right, so we want async SSH also in that list, because then we can reference it. Okay, this is building a bunch of things. I don't know if we got this far before. What's going on? Okay, that's fun. In the time that I have been talking, that pull request that I wanted to add on to the end of has been merged. So it looks like I am going to have to put in another pull request. Yeah, okay, so I've added some updated docs, and that's fine. They look good. I'm just going to delete that branch. So that has been sorted. So the changes that I made over in distributed, I will put it on a new branch, make a new pull request. Fine. How's things going over here? Right, that's not a fast build that, but it built that time, so I must have just had an update dependency. So now let's. I'm just gonna tidy up. Let's. Yeah, I'm just gonna tidy up. Let's close. I want to touch the right there, and I'm gonna say I'm gonna go to localhost 8000, and I have now my local copy of the DAS docs. That's working. I'm serving from my little Python HTTP server over here. And this is the HTML files that I just built into there. We should have /setup /sh.html, right? And we have this SSH cluster class. Now, okay, that is good. Because of the way, I kind of want to open that as well. Let me just projects task distributed as a deploy. Oh no, distributed deploy sh. Right, just open that as well. Like opening files cross project, but and have a look at this doc string again here. Because I've put func and class here, instead of it just being a little code block, it is showing as a reference here. But it's not been able to find the reference, so these aren't actually links. And because I've said that this is a func and gone like that, it has added the brackets, the func. That's good. But what I need to do now is configure intersphinx so it can actually find that reference and correctly link through. So let's back in here in my, it must be in source, it's the config file for, there we go, for Sphinx. Now there must be an intersphinx config, yeah, intersphinx mapping, lovely. Let's add a new mapping, which is async sh, which contains a tuple, which has, just going off what they've got here, they've got like the root of the docs and then the path to that object.inv. So let's go to async sh, go to the root of the docs, latest, put that in, and then it was objects.inv. Is that the one? Should tell me to, yeah, that was the right one. It tells me to download it. Oh yeah, sorry, you can't see that little pop-up in the stream. Just go like that. Oh, didn't mean to close that. Keyboard shortcut excitement. Okay, so I've added async SSH into that list. And now I need to build my docs again. So let's just go like that, and then I'm gonna scroll a little bit. Loading intersphinx inventory from async SSH. Okay, they must have cached the others because it's only showing one thing there, but it has loaded the inventory now. That was nice and fast. So I'm hoping that that is enough to make these links work. Now this docs build was a little bit long-winded, wasn't it? Yeah, I'm quite pleased to see, actually. I didn't really realize this. I played with Sphinx a bit, but not a huge amount. That if you make a reference to something that doesn't exist, it still shows it and puts it in a code block and stuff, but it just doesn't actually link anywhere. But that's fine. I don't mind it actually linking anywhere because I want it to, like, if I make the pull request into distributed, which makes this change, but the updating the conf.py in the Dask repository doesn't get done for a while, the distributed docs will still work and still look fine. And maybe there's a decision that they don't want to add the intersphinx. Maybe they do. I don't know. But we'll just see. That's built. That's finished. So if I come back to my local version of the docs, and if I do clear cache refresh, I'm holding down Shift as well as refreshing the page. Yeah, okay. So async SSH connect and async SSH which options are links, and if I click them, oh, it takes me to the async SSH docs. Lovely. That is exactly what I wanted to happen. So in conf.py, I've added async SSH as an intersphinx mapping, and then in my code, I've said the function async ssh.connect and the class async ssh client connection options, and Sphinx has worked out where in the documentation that is, what link that is, where it's been generated, and everything. So that's really nice. I can just link straight across from there. You can click that, see connect. They can then see the parameters. Annoyingly, like all of this was about how do I know what arguments to pass in like how do I know how to pass different arguments? And the way things work in async SSH is the connect function takes some things like the port. So if SSH is being served on a non-standard port, you might need to set that somewhere. I used to have this, like my local public library doesn't allow SSH connections on their free Wi-Fi for some reason. And I was at the library, I was working on something, wasn't able to SSH somewhere. So I just have a server running on a non-standard port so that it's not blocked. I actually chose like one of the secure email ports because I assume that email ports are probably going to be open on most Wi-Fi. But there's things like that which are kind of specific to the connect object, but then there's also this SSH client options. And that has far more things, like you can specify the known hosts file, you can specify a username and password as a string, specify keys like explicitly, you can specify a passphrase if the key is encrypted. There's like a whole load of stuff you can do in there. And the way that it works is async sh connect like has its own arguments, but then it also just it wraps up any other quarks that you pass through. and it just hands them over. It unpacks that again into this object. So from the point of view of a user using the SSH cluster in Dask, they pass one of these connection options, which is a dictionary or a list of dictionaries, one per host. That dictionary gets like unwrapped. Client connect takes any of the things which are applicable, and then it rewraps them and hands them on to SSH client connection options, which then unwraps them again. So it's not super clear. There's a few hops to kind of get your head around. But I'm happy in the sense that I've added something to Dask here, this couple of lines, and then I've updated the docs again. So what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to open another terminal. I'm not going to change my project back. I'm just going to go up to distributed, and I'm going to see what's going on here. So if I'm actually going to go git stash to stash my changes, and I'm going to git checkout master because this has been merged. I kind of just want to start again. So let's git pull upstream master, git push, just to update my local copy, just because I don't want that little asterisk there. Now if I git checkout a new branch, and this would be let's call this async sh intersphinx. And I'm going to go git stash apply to put my changes back on again, and then we'll add and commit, and we'll say change async sh. Let's just, yeah, that's fine. So change async ssh reference async ssh objects to Sphinx references. Right. I'm going to git push that. That's that branch. So let's go another PR. We're going to come and open this PR, and I'm just going to say so changed to Sphinx references to allow intersphinx linking. C Dask hash to do for intersphinx change. Right. So I'm gonna raise this pull request here, and I'm gonna very quickly go and raise a pull request against Dask as well. So let's cd back to where I was. Get status. So I'm gonna get checkout -b, and I'm gonna also call this async sh intersphinx. Okay, get add that and commit it. We'll say add async sh intersphinx mappings, and then we'll push that. And open a pull request as well. Okay, I'm going to say add async sh intersphinx mappings for distributed.deploy.sh cluster doc strings. C, and then this is cross-reference my pull request. So see that for usage, I make that pull request, and that will give me a number here that I can come back and edit over here and cross-link back the other way. So yeah, I've gone in and changed those references, and then I've gone in here and changed that. And so new Dask documentation should get built with that. And the last thing I want to do, so that's it, I'm done. I'm under my time limit again, which I'm quite pleased about. Hopefully that was a useful intro into wow, a whirlwind tour of Sphinx, I guess, but like a good intro into Sphinx and how cross-project mappings work. It's a really good thing to turn on if you have Sphinx documentation. Just having intersphinx plugin installed and enabled, even if you're not using the mappings to other projects yourselves, it allows other projects to map to you. So then you get cross documentation links, which is all good for search rankings and all that kind of stuff, and good for users in general. So I've got 2 pull requests here. I've raised both of those as part of this. So I'm going to come back to my project board, and I'm going to add that as a raised pull request, and that as a raised pull request. Dash task and dash distributed. I'm actually going to make this one. I'm going to delete that note. I'm going to make this. Can I put 2 in here? That and that. I'm going to show 2 references. 2 references. Okay, let's just collapse them. Fine. I've got those 2. There's 2 references. They're done. I'm going to archive that potential issue because I've now got my 2 pull requests raised here. So that's it. In the last 2 minutes, I'm just going to go through where I was. So yeah, just coming through my project board. I'm still just slowly adding things. If there's anything I can think of that I think might be a good use for this channel, I'm throwing a card over into the potential 30-minute issues. Raise PRs. Looks like these 2 haven't had anything. I don't think there's been any activity there or there. Oh no, actually, so let's have a look at this one. First, it's just that this was adding the Helm cluster manager to Dask Kubernetes. So the only movement here was one of our active users popped in and just said, does this close an issue, which talks about connecting to an existing cluster, which it kind of does, it kind of doesn't. I've kind of covered it in a comment here. When you create a cluster with Dask Kubernetes, there's currently no way to detach from that cluster. If you kill your Python session, the Kubernetes resources get cleaned up as well. And it would be nice to be able to detach and reattach. And what we do with the Helm cluster is kind of, you're attaching to something that was created with Helm, it was created in a different way. And so still having the ability to create a kube cluster and then detach and reattach would be useful. So this kind of satisfies attaching to an existing cluster, but not quite in the way that was intended in that issue. But that's the only update there. No further reviews. I kind of gave a nudge and said, you seem interested in this. Would you like to review this and test it and see what you think? And then yes, there was also this one, which was allow SSH cluster. This again is related to the bit of code we were just looking at, and it was the same bit of docs actually ended up getting changed in this, which is allowing that SSH cluster to take not only a dictionary of connection options, but a list of dictionaries which get, you can connect to as many hosts as you want by your SSH. So if you give 5 hosts, you can also give 5 connection option dictionaries and specify different options for each host if you specifically want. The use case here was that you might have a different username on different systems. And that was, again, it was a small code change, but a documentation change. And that one has now been merged. So that code is in, a pull request is done. I'm going to move that over into merged PRs. I still haven't raised any that have been closed. I feel like this is getting unusual now. Like, it's quite normal to open a pull request, maybe talk about it, review it, and it ultimately be rejected, not necessarily because it was a bad idea, but maybe because it wasn't in the right direction, or because there's like a better way of doing it. Maybe you want to take another run at it. Ideally, I like to keep pull requests really, really small, not make too many changes, make lots of pull requests, because then you start a pull request, and if you're working through it and you don't like it, you can just throw that branch away, check out again, start again. The thing you're working on should be in your head enough that you can recreate it pretty quickly, but maybe you want to recreate it differently or go down a different path. So it's totally normal to have pull requests closed, and I'm not, that's not like a worry at all. But it's interesting to see that of the 6 that have been kind of completed, all 6 of them have been merged that I've done on this channel so far. Maybe it's because I'm picking things that are small in scope. It's less likely that small scope things are going to get rejected. I don't know. I just thought that was an interesting observation. So given that I opened that pull request, started streaming maybe 20 minutes later, and it got merged within the time of the stream, maybe these will end up being merged reasonably quickly. I don't know. There may be more debate about the intersphinx mappings because at the moment the only intersphinx mappings are for like big core components of the project, pandas and NumPy and things. So adding something which is kind of not tangential, but like the deployment stuff is a little tangential. So maybe I don't know. It hasn't slowed down the build as far as I can tell. Like pulling those mappings down took under a second, so I don't think it's going to cause problems, but we'll see how that goes. Um, so I'm going to wrap that up there. Thank you for joining me. I hope this was useful, and